Your conscious mind is the goal setter. Your conscious mind is the goal setter. Your conscious mind, it's about 5% of your mind. It's what you think, your decision making, and 95% of everything else is your unconscious mind. So, conscious mind is your goal setter. Your unconscious mind is your goal getter. Welcome to the Open Delta podcast, where we believe that you are here to be more, not do more. I am your host, Aileen, and as a coach, speaker, and consultant, I will help you manifest your dream life that can bring you more power, peace, and cash. If you're ready to dive into the mindset, neuroscience, and connection to the universe, vamos a darle. I'm so excited to be talking about identity capital today. And first of all, as we always start with a moment of gratitude, thank you from the bottom of my heart, all the messages, all the reshares. The launch of this podcast has been an experience on its own. I felt an overwhelming amount of love and support and encouragement. So I truly appreciate to all of you that have liked, shared, listened, and spent a couple minutes of your time here and there to listen to the podcast and share with the world. I have no words to describe it. There's been a handful of people that have told me about some of the references to the first episode in terms of saying but or long story short, and kind of referencing some of the things that I've shared in the last two episodes. So I love that. It makes me feel very honored that you all are listening, paying attention to the words that I'm saying, and I'm just so excited to be on this journey and be in this journey with you. And I intentionally did not really talk about my quote unquote resume on the first few episodes because I think that you all will learn throughout the podcast more about my background, and also because I wanted everyone to listen to who I am as a person, who I am at my core essence, and not what has been my resume. I think most of the people that have listened to a podcast or have been introduced to it, it's because of either 1 or 2 degrees of connection to me. And so I think for the most part, some of you guys know some of my resume. And I think today, where we talk about identity capital and what does that mean, is where I will be sharing a little bit more about that, because I think it's very cool, some of the things that I have been to experience in my personal life, my professional life. However, that is not what defines me. I think my essence and my values and my passion and my purpose is what defines me, and I'm so excited to continue this conversation with you. So to explain a little bit, grounding ourselves again on the topic of this week's conversation, it was actually the term identity capital was found or coined by the sociologist James Cotte. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And it was popularized by psychologist Dr. Meg Jay. She has a book, The Defining Decade, and I love this book so much. And it's literally the first chapter that she talks about identity capital, and it so much resonated with me. And if you have read this book, you know a little bit about it. However, for those who haven't, she really emphasizes why your 20s matter and how to make the most out of them now. And it's really about her therapist or psychologist journey on all the people or some of the stories that she's sharing about her clients. And so most of the case are her opinions and stories of her clients going through their therapy journey. So Identity capital is our stock of personal assets. This is how we add value to who we are, and it is what we have to show for how we have spent our time. These are investments we make in ourselves, or the thing that we do well enough or long enough that they become of who we are. So what are the combination of quality, skills, credential, and experiences that add value to our environment, our community, whether that is your family or your workplace. And this is how we build ourselves bit by bit over time. And I think one of the things that I love about this essence of identity capital is that it gives a purpose and it gives an intention to any and every experience that you might have. Everything that you might have done up until this point, it's essentially getting added to that identity capital resume checklist. And the last thing that I'll read to you is, she says, it is how we present ourselves, where we happen to be from, how we solve problems, or what our hobbies or life experiences may be. Taking together our unique collection of identity capital is what we bring to the adult marketplace. It is the currency we use to metaphorically purchase jobs, opportunities, and other things that we might want. So I think this is very important to how we think about ourselves and how we're able to provide value to other people, whether it is a job, whether it is a relationship, whether it is a friendship. I think there's a lot of value because, like the book reads, it's what makes you unique and it's what makes you valuable. And I think that if we go back to our reference of the disco ball, like that is one little square that makes you a beautiful collection of all of your experiences of who we are as a human being, and also how we can leverage those experiences to go forward and who we want to share it with. Identity capital is essential to living and doing a fulfilling career. And really, when I began as a coach, when I began coaching, I didn't realize my progression would happen because of my identity capital. For context, when I was in college, I was part of the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. I still am. And this is where I started a lot of my professional development, career development, very, very early on. I joined as a freshman. I was the secretary my freshman year. My sophomore year, there were a series of events that led for me to be president that sophomore year. And I had no idea managing people, managing budgets, managing expectations, sending a group of people to different conferences and really training them on all of the things that we had a programming for. And really, SHIP was the incubator throughout my college years for me to become a more fluent leader, a more comfortable speaker. And my brand grew throughout the years as I was also growing within the SHIP ecosystem. Fast forward to my senior year, I also was part of the national board for SHIP. And here I was really advocating for young professionals. SHIP has an amazing platform to get students ready for a career, to get them a full-time job, get them those internships. It's the largest gathering of Hispanics in STEM every single year. And I hope you are going to the SHIP conference if you are a STEM student or engineer. And through all of those years, people were watching me. And I was building, not knowingly, that identity capital through the community service, through the leadership roles, through student roles that I was also doing. And when I started coaching, even though, quote unquote, I didn't have like that coaching experience, and I didn't consider myself a coach to some degree, it was because of my identity capital that a lot of people were willing and wanting to work with me because of the set of experiences that they've known me throughout the years, because people were familiar with my trajectory, and that is why they wanted to work with me, because my identity capital, they were not there for my curriculum per se. So I want to talk to you about the different buckets that identity capital can come into play so you can recognize them, and in some cases, you might have a gap or two on things that you want to add to your identity capital. So my intention is for you to A, recognize those that you already have, and then B, the ones that you want to grow more into, that you pursue whatever that opportunity might look like for you. So what are some of the types of identity capital that you can leverage today? The first one is skills and knowledge. And this is referencing acquiring new skills and continuing education. It's what builds your identity capital in those areas. So whether it's going to college, going through your coursework, internships, co-ops, part-time jobs, all of those, you're learning new skills that will be part of your disco ball resume, if we call it that. I started working at a coffee shop when I was my summer in high school. It's when I started working, and this coffee shop was a little bit of a mess. They had a lot of things going on, not a lot of structure, and with constant people coming in and out, that is where really I stepped into my industrial engineering role without knowing what industrial engineering was. And so I created a schedule. I wanted some structure. I wanted some responsibilities. So everybody knew what was needed to be done in every shift. And there were some tasks that we actually started doing on a weekly, monthly basis. And I didn't know until I started college that really those were a lot of process improvements and a lot of what industrial engineering was about. And that was a skill that I was building without knowing what I was building at the time. And so what are some of those skills and knowledge that probably don't, quote unquote, have that label in your past that have transferred over to your current identity capital resume in today's environment? Second bucket that it's related to the first one, it's really about experiences, and this is of course probably one of my favorite ones, and it's because the value of that lived experience, it's really priceless. You don't know how much something is or isn't for you until you do it. So this is really stepping into that action component. And for example, traveling to new places, if you travel outside of the country, if you travel to other continents, you might have experienced the different cultures, the different language, the different foods from very amazing places that are outside of your community. Switching roles at work or switching careers, it's something that it's a new lived experience, and we often also go through that through personal projects, and those really shape your perspective and your resilience. And when I was thinking about this experience bucket for your identity capital, I instantly thought of Ana Paulina. Ana Paulina is my cousin who's going to Harvard, and she is in the process of applying to medical school. And I say that with, she has already applied. She's in the process of waiting to hear back from all of the interviews that she's going to get. And this last summer, she applied to a scholarship or a fellowship that Harvard will give them a grant to students, and they can go and essentially work pro bono for certain organizations. And she applied to a couple scholarships. She got one back, and that one was specifically to go work at a hospital in Ciudad Juarez. That way, she would have the international experience working at a hospital, and she goes to school in the States. All of the language and context is in English. So going to a hospital in Mexico, it's a whole different ballgame on how their processes work, the language, the terminology that they use. And so she was already in summer break, and she got an email from Harvard's president's office that she actually got the presidential scholarship. And she was super, super excited. However, that presidential scholarship was only for a summer internship in the States. So that meant that if she took that scholarship money, that she wouldn't be able to have the experience in Mexico. And so this is where she needed to make a decision, or she needed to make a choice or a conversation with them, because either A, she could take the presidential scholarship and do some sort of experience in the States, or not take the presidential scholarship and go to Mexico and work at a hospital, which she really wanted for her identity capital, for her resume for med school. And this is before she actually started applying. So I think that is a beautiful example of how you can sometimes think of which one is a better opportunity now, or which one is a better opportunity in the long run because of what that identity capital experience is going to provide for me. Just to give you some closure, she was able to go back to the president's office and talk to them about her situation. She had already accepted funding from the scholarship that reached out to her first, and she was actually able to shorten the time in the hospital in Mexico. And she essentially added another internship for that summer. That way she could do both. The presidential scholarship will allow that situation. And so she not only was able to go to Mexico and do that experience, she then, in the middle of summer, transitioned to the States to do work with a women's center in El Paso, which it's the United States. And so she got to do 2 different internships in one summer, still got the presidential scholarship on her resume, and now she even has a more beautiful story for her identity capital for her applications. Next bucket is personal qualities, and this is super fun to work with clients because this is where we're talking confidence, reliability, emotional intelligence, how they serve as identity capital in professional and social situations, because at the end of the day, people remember how you made them feel. One of the biggest compliments that I've ever received was actually when I was going through a scholarship process, and I was asking for a letter of recommendations for one of my mentors, and this was one of those processes that the recommender sends the letter of recommendation into the committee, not through you, and so I wasn't able to see the letter. However, I was having coffee with this mentor, and I mentioned that I was very curious about what they had shared with the selection committee, and he forwarded me the letter, and in the letter he wrote, "Aileen is one of those people that lights up the room as she walks in." And this was years ago, and it still gets to me because my essence is what I want to be remembered for. I don't want to be remembered for my resume, what I've achieved. I really want to be remembered by how I made people feel. And I hope that is in the lines of open delta, of growth, of vulnerability, of empowerment, and those personal qualities, whatever those are for you, I think is an important reminder to what are those values that you have as a person that you want to continue sharing with the world. The next one, kind of talking from that mentorship track, it's social networks. And so this is all about building relationships, building those networks that are going to build on your identity capital. I know that I usually do the quote at the end. However, this truly has changed how I approach networking and present myself to people that I haven't seen in a while, that might be my first interaction with them. And probably we've all heard the quote, your network is your net worth. It's very important who you know. However, I can't remember. I think it was probably from one of my mentors. And they said to me, it's not who you know, but who knows you. And I think the power of this statement is that it's not important for you to know that person if someone else is having a conversation and they know you, what your values are, what you're about, what you're interested in. They can speak into existence those opportunities, those connections, those things that are outside of your control for you, because they know those things about you. And this is how I've been invited to the speaking engagements that I've been part of. It's because people know me, people know my brand, that I've been called to those speaking engagements, because it's not who I know. It's those people that know me, that want to bring me into the picture in it. I had a recent example last week. Someone reached out to me via LinkedIn saying, hey, I'm going to the SHIP National Convention, and I remember that you are very well connected throughout the SHIP community. I would like to get your input on some of the strategies that I'm putting together for a conference. And this is someone that I probably spoke once my sophomore year in college. I've been out of college for 6 years. So your identity capital does not end in any specific time. Your brand will go and live with you throughout many, many years to come. So last one that I'll discuss here with you is credentials and achievements. Anything from academic or professional qualification, accolades, and of course, having those credentials layers within your disco ball resume are very important, whether it's an advanced degree or a certification. And I did not know that I was going to enjoy certification and achievement so much. I started learning a lot more about the unconscious mind, how it works, how to remove some of the blocks that we have from our mindset perspective. And it evolved to me being absolutely obsessed with it. And I think now I've transitioned into what is the connection between our unconscious mind, our body, and how do we make those connections not have any static? Why have they been so disconnected, and what are some of the practical tools that I can do to myself, to my clients, to make sure that those are aligned, talking to each other, and actually be best friends to work towards your goals and not away from your goals. One nugget of information that I'll share here is that your conscious mind is the goal setter. Your conscious mind is the goal setter. Your conscious mind, it's about 5% of your mind. It's what you think, your decision making, and 95% of everything else is your unconscious mind. So conscious mind is your goal setter. Your unconscious mind is your goal getter. And that quote literally changed my life, because it explained that a lot of my limiting beliefs, unconscious thought, were not helping me get to my actual goals that I was setting with my conscious mind. However, if you know how to align those two, align your unconscious mind, your body, your intentions with that energy of the creator, you're going to be able to fast track to your goals that your conscious mind is setting. So mastering your mindset, mastering your mental resilience are super powerful to continuing helping on that identity capital. So a little bit more from a self-reflection point of view, I want you to start thinking about what assets do you already have that you can start leveraging. What are some of the areas you think you want to continue growing? Hey, what's your open delta? And what are some of the steps to get you there? Think about what is the next step immediately that you can do. Whether it's you have a question and you know that someone is very skilled in that, maybe sending that text like I texted my primos, maybe is registering for that next course. Maybe it's actually not registering for the course. Maybe it's doing the research on when you can take that type of course, scheduling that meeting. If you've been procrastinating, talking to someone, go ahead and send that email, send that text, and schedule that meeting. I constantly have to remind myself to step out of my comfort zone and taking new experiences, new challenges, because that is how we promote growth, and that is how we grow, and that is how we tap into what our potential could be. And another thing that I can recommend that you do is to tap into your mentors and the people around you, into their identity capital. If you know that your mentor has a specific skill, a specific experience that you want for yourself, go ahead and make that connection. That way you can also add that into your identity capital disc ball resume. And identity capital has a layer of visibility that I worked on myself, that I worked with my clients to uncover why is it that they are potentially intimidating from public speaking, from boosting their leadership, from speaking their mind, and really show up confidently to those spaces and with those people around them that frankly they just want you to succeed. They want you to see you light up the world. And seeing identity capital as we've been saying during this episode, is accepting the entire disc ball. There will be highs, there will be lows in creating that resume. However, all of those will be experiences. And talking about the experimentation process in the last episode, it's about embracing the experiment and really taking the lessons with you for you to have that entire picture. And the moment that you accept the entire disc ball and you surrender to what is and modify your expectations to what it could have been, etc., it's how you step into your most authentic you. The moment that I stopped giving power to those experiences that weren't adding value to my life, frankly, it was mostly working through shame. Whenever I let go of that shame, heal that shame, and really sat with it, is where I felt the most liberation. Because even if it wasn't a great experience that I had in the past, it was just one data point. It was just one little square, un cuadrito in that disc ball, and that made me feel very comfortable on my skin. That made me feel very happy that actually I am the leader and I am the person that I am. Even though I went through that situation, it made me very value much all of those different experiences that I had in the past. So today, take inventory of your stock, of your identity capital, journal about it, identify some of the gaps of where you're trying to go. And I also want to encourage you to share your identity capital, whether it was a skill, knowledge that you can share with someone else, an experience, if you can experience that for yourself or give someone the pleasure of experiencing something with you, sharing your personal qualities, tapping into your social networks, or maybe you register for that new course that you've been thinking about. Do something new for yourself this week. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends. Your subscriptions and your reviews really help so much to keep this show going, and I'm so excited to continue learning and seeing what you are building as part of your identity capital. And remember, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. Bye.